Hello everyone, welcome to Programming Pool channel and welcome to JavaScript course. In this video, I will explain all about variables, which is one of the main concepts in programming, not only in JavaScript but also in all other languages, programming languages. It is actually the way how to store data in memory and use them later in the website. But before we dive into this concept, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you will not miss any upcoming videos. Now, what is variable? Variable is a name we give to memory location to store data. Every variable has type, a name, and a value. When you create a variable, there are some rules and conventions to create a variable, or we call them sometimes identifiers. Name must start with a letter, or underscore or a dollar sign. After first letter, we can use digits, for example, value number 1. JavaScript variables are case sensitive. For example, if we type small x and capital X are different variables. Examples of some vars: var car equals Toyota, equal here is assignment operator. So basically, we are assigning a value to a car. Okay, so the memory location will call it car, and the value under that memory or under that var is Toyota. We are storing there. Var starting with underscore. For const, it stands for constant. All letters should be capital because this variable, when we create it and assign it a value, we can't change the value. All right, or like reassign it to a different value. Now there are two types of variables in JavaScript: local variables and global variables. Local variables is declared inside a function or a block of code or under classes, and it is not accessible outside the function or block. All right, if you try to access it outside of the curly bracket, for example, outside the function, it will not be accessed, it will throw an error. Global variables, it is declared outside the function and will be accessible from all functions or scripts in the page. Okay. In JavaScript, there are four ways to create or declare variables. Automatically, example, just put the name of the variable car assignment to Toyota. Using a var keyword, example var car equals Toyota. Using let, example let car equals Toyota. And just to mention, when I say equal means the assignment operator, but I'm saying equal so it's easier than saying assignment. Using const keyword, const car equals Toyota. Some facts about var keyword. Variables defined with a var keyword can be redeclared and reassigned. For example, if you put var car equals Toyota, you can after that line of code, say again var car equals, let's say, Toyota or something else. So it can be redeclared. Variables defined with a var keyword can be accessed before declaring them with a value undefined. So before we say var car equals Toyota, if we want to print it to the console or we can access it, it will be accessed without throwing any error, but the value will be undefined. A variable defined with the var keyword doesn't have a block scope. That means if we declare a variable with a var keyword in a function or under a scope, if like a brackets or something, we can access it outside the block or outside the function. Some facts about let keyword. Variables defined with the let keyword can't be redeclared. That means if we say let car equals Toyota, we can't say after that again let car equals Toyota. Then it will throw an error. Variables defined with let keyword must be declared before use. So before we declare them, we can't access them. So if we print it to the console, it will throw an error, or it will show you that the variable doesn't exist or is not declared yet. Variables defined with let have a block scope. That means if we declare a variable with a key let under a function, if we try to access it outside the function, it will not be accessed and it will throw an error. Some facts about constant keyword or const keyword. Variables defined with a const can't be redeclared, as what we said in let. Variables defined with a const can't be reassigned. That means if we create a variable with a const keyword, like const car equals Toyota, we can't after that say car equals like Mercedes. Variables defined with const have a block scope. Again, that means when you create a variable with a key const under a function or a scope, any scope, we can't access it outside that scope. We can't access it outside that function. And now let's go to do some coding. Open the project that we created last time and create a new file called variables.js. And let's implement what we talked about in our slides. So we have 4 ways to declare variables automatically using var and using let using const. Now let's start from the first one automatically. If we put car, assign it a value of Toyota. Now we created a variable of type any. And any means it is any value that you assign it, it will be the same type as the value. For example, if it is string, we created a string within a double quote, that means it is a string. If we put a number, that means we created a number. And it will determine the type of the variable where at runtime. All right. Okay, now let's print it to the console. Log car and print the type of the var by using type of operator. All right. Now let's run the program by typing node vtab. So the type is string and the value is Toyota. Let's change the value to a number 5 or 4. Save it. Run it again. You can scroll up using the up arrow in the keyboard. You can see that again that command, so you will not type it again. Press enter. Now the value is 4 and the type is number, and again it will determine the type of the var at runtime. And the way the program runs is line by line from the top of the file to the end of the file. All right, from one to the end, whatever it is. All right, now let's try to access it before we declare it. All right, save it, run it again. Now it will throw an error. Car is not defined. All right, because we are accessing a variable, it is not declared yet. So that will prove you that the code is running line by line from the top to the bottom. Now let's scoop it out in the curly brackets. Now we have separated this line of code or creating the variable in the scope. Okay, and we are trying to access it outside the scope. Let's run the program again. Now you see it runs without throwing any errors, so that means that you can access it even it is out of scope. That means it is a global variable. All right. Now let's create a new variable with using a second keyword, which is var. If you put var car2, assign it a value of Mazda, save it. Again, you can print it to the console, change the value to car to type of it, run the program again. Now you see the value is Mazda and the type is string. Now let's comment it out the previous code. You can do that by pressing on Control plus the backslash. All right. Now let's run the program again. So the type is a string and the value is Mazda. If you wanna change it to a number, it will again run it. The type is a number and the value is 5. If you hover over the variable, it will show you the type is var and it is a number. All right. If you change it to string, all right, Mazda, it will show you string. All right. Now let's try to access it before we define it. All right. Run it. Now it prints undefined. So we are trying to access it before even we are declaring it. And if you hover over it, it will show you it's string, but the value uh, is undefined because still here we didn't assign any value to it, but you are able to access it. You are assigning the value after that, which is called assigned with Mazda. So you can access it before declaring it. Now let's scoop it out in brackets. Let's try to, let's delete this line of code. Let's try to print it even if it is out of scope. So the type is string and the value is mass. They're still running without throwing any errors. That means this var is in a global layer. So you can access it even if you created it in a different scope. This is not a very good approach, especially for security purposes. So it's not very recommended way unless you have very old browser. I don't recommend to use a var. All right, you always try to use let the next one unless you have old browser, so you use var. Now let's use the third way to create variables. All right, let car underscore 3 assign it a value of Kia. Now let's try to print it out to the console. And we will print the type of the car, type of car 3. If you hover over it, the type of the variable is a string and the keyword is let. So it is detecting that the value is a string. Now if we change it to 6 again to the number, now it's number, right? Let's print it uh, as number. Let's run the code, node v dash. So the type is number and the value is 6. If we change it to Kia again, now the value is Kia and the type is string. If we try to access it before the declaring the variable, and let's run the code. We didn't save it. Let's save it. Now let's run it. All right, now can't access got it before initializing. All right, now because we are trying to access it before even declaring it or initializing, it will throw you an error. Not like what we did in a var that we can access it. All right. Now let's scoop it out in brackets and try access it from outside of scoop. Let's run the code. So it throw an error. Car 3 is not defined. So that means we can't access it from outside the scope. So when we put the curly brackets, we are creating a new scope. This scope, we can't access it. All right. Let's use the final way to create a variable, which is const, and const is constant. Um, Constant is a variable that its value can't be changed. So once you created the variable and assign it a value, you can't change it again later in the application. You can use it, but you can't change it. And it's good and it's convention to create a constant by using all capital letters. That indicates to the programmers that this one is a constant. So if you put car underscore, or let's just leave it as it is. Let's put Honda out console.log car, print the type of the variable. So if you hover over it, it will show you not the type string, it will show you the value of it because it's constant. The values will never change. All right, even the type will never change. Now, if you run the code, so the Honda is the value and the type is a string. Now let's try to change the value car or car, assign it different value, save it. Now let's run the code. Now you see it will throw an error, assignment to constant variable. That's not allowed. You can't even assign it the same value. All right. Let's put Honda, run the code, assignment to constant variable error. All right. Now let's try to access it before we declare it or initialize it. Run the code again. Can't access car before initializing. So the error is indicating that we don't have a variable. All right, you should initialize a variable before you access it. Let's scope it out in a scope. Try to access it again. Car is not defined. That means this variable, it doesn't exist in this scope. Pay attention to the car. What will happen if we scope it out? You see, it will be like a darker. That means it's not used. And if you hover over it, it is declared, but its value never read. So that means it's never used, right? And I want to mention one thing. When this variable is scoped out and you can't access it from another scopes or like from outside the scope, that means the variable is local variable and it is local to this scope. All right. I think now you have a very good idea about variables in JavaScript, and you have a clue how is the difference between local and global variables. You can practice yourself and see the differences. You can create new variables, assign new values, print them to the console. In the next video, I will talk about arithmetics like subtraction, addition, and so. Also, I will talk about decision making or like control flow, which is if and if else statements. Thank you for watching and see you next video.